Hi, my name is Anne. Thank you for coming to my channel. Today I want to talk about travel insurance, and this is something that I used to not think about at all. I never even considered purchasing travel insurance because I figured I'm never going to cancel a trip. Nothing bad is going to happen. It'll be fine. Then I went to Lisbon right after travel was opening back up from the COVID shutdowns. And at that time, you needed to do COVID testing both ways. And so I was concerned, what if I get COVID before I leave and I have to cancel my entire trip? Or worse, what would happen if I got COVID while I was in Portugal and had to quarantine there for, at the time, it was 10 days, and that was an expense I was worried about having to pay. Then when I did my first Camino a couple of years ago, I was concerned about my health. If something happened to me, if I fell and broke a leg or something like that, what would happen? Because I was pretty sure that my home insurance through my work would not cover me abroad. So again, I needed insurance. And you might remember there were several times in the last year or so where people who didn't have travel insurance were kind of out of luck when plans went awry. There was the computer outage that happened to airlines a while back that took days to recover from. And so people might not have made it to, say, a cruise on time, didn't get to take their cruise, and were out that money. Or there was a Taylor Swift concert that was canceled because there was a terrorist threat. And so if you chose not to go to Vienna, I think is where the concert was, if you weren't going to go there because the concert was canceled, the plane still went, so you would be out the money that you paid if you chose not to go. So travel insurance really helps protect you from those things that could come up that you are completely unexpecting, and you have prepaid costs that you don't want to just lose. You want to have some coverage. And with some of the geopolitical things that are happening in our world right now, you never know what might happen between today when you buy your ticket to go somewhere and the time you actually go. Perhaps you can't go and you don't want to be out of money. So what I want to share here is some things that are covered in travel insurance, where you can look to get travel insurance, and just some things to keep in mind when you are looking to purchase it. So let's start with what kinds of things are covered. The first thing you want to decide is whether you want something called cancel for any reason insurance, or CFAR. That is just what the name says. If you cancel for any reason, I don't feel like going and so I'm canceling, you are covered. There are some caveats with this type of insurance, though. You have to purchase it within a certain number of days of your first deposit towards whatever it is you are paying for your trip, whether that's airfare, a cruise deposit, a prepaid hotel, anything like that. Usually it's around 14 days, but every policy will be a bit different. If you don't have CFAR insurance, or it's too late and you can't buy it anymore, then you can only cancel for reasons that are specified within your policy. I'm going to put a picture up here that shows some of the things that might be covered with just regular travel insurance. I don't usually buy CFAR insurance, usually because I forget to do it in time, but usually I'm not concerned with me canceling because I don't feel like going. Generally, if I'm going to have an issue, it's going to be for a covered reason. That, of course, does add to the cost of your insurance. So it really is a matter of what you want to have covered and what risks you're willing to take. Because really, insurance of any kind is about managing risk. So what risks are you willing to take? What risks are you not? CFAR insurance is one of those things you have to decide if that's a risk you want to take or not. Aside from that, what is covered? There are a lot of things that are covered, and I was actually really surprised at how much is covered within a plan. So here are some examples, and I will again put up here an example that I found on an insurance website that I will list below, so they get credit for me taking these pictures off their website. But every insurance company is going to be different. Every policy is going to be different. And the cost is going to vary depending on the dollar amount that you want covered. Obviously, the more you want covered, the higher the cost of the plan. So one thing is medical coverage. This is something that I generally, now that I'm getting older, am more and more concerned with. What happens if I get sick or injured while I'm traveling? I want to be covered. And like I had said earlier, my medical coverage through my job doesn't cover me outside of the country. So you're going to decide what dollar amount you want, and then you can also have dental plans added onto that as well. So if you have to go to the doctor, you will be covered. Now, the thing to remember with insurance generally is that you are often getting reimbursed for expenses. So if you just go into a clinic because you have a cold and they prescribe some medicine for you, you're going to pay that up front and then get reimbursed for that when you get back. If you have a really significant injury, you have a heart attack, you get hit by a car, those sorts of things, generally then they will bill the insurance directly. But for smaller value things, you're going to be reimbursed. So you do need to make sure you have money that you can spend, whether it's cash or a credit card, until you can get reimbursed, because it's not going to happen at the time that you are spending whatever it is that you need. Next is evacuation and repatriation. So evacuation is if, let's say there's some sort of unrest or terrorist issue at a place where you are, and you need to evacuate from that location, that will pay for that evacuation. Repatriation, sadly, is if you die while you're abroad. How are we going to get your body back? You will be covered for the cost of doing that. Next is protection for your stuff. What happens if the things you bring with you get lost, stolen, or damaged? Insurance can cover you for that loss. Accidental death or dismemberment is payment that you would get if you're dismembered. Let's say you get hit by a car and they end up having to amputate a leg or something. There would be coverage for that. Or if you die, it's basically an insurance policy, like almost like life insurance, that goes to your family. And then there is trip protection. What happens if your flight is delayed, you miss a connection, you get caught in traffic and don't make it to the airport on time? All of those sorts of things can be covered. And again, for all of these, the dollar amount that you want covered is going to influence the cost of the insurance. So really you need to pay a lot of attention to what each insurance policy that you have a choice from is offering and what you want covered. Don't just automatically pick the highest one because you think that's the worst case scenario. Really think through, what is the likelihood that something is going to happen to you? As I get older, my risk of a medical issue is probably higher than it was when I was traveling in my 20s. But an accident can happen to anybody. So you really just have to figure out where you fit within that risk tolerance and find an insurance policy that matches what you need. When you're purchasing an insurance policy, it's usually just for that particular trip. So you're buying a policy that only applies for the 2 weeks, for example, that you are traveling. And so I generally only buy insurance when I'm traveling internationally. I don't when I'm traveling domestically because my insurance covers me here. Worst case scenario, I can rent a car. It's just a more comfortable place for me to be and the risk is lower. However, you can buy an annual insurance policy. And I do that if I am traveling internationally at least twice in a 365-day period. Then I am covered domestically as well as internationally, so it ends up working out really well. And most of the time these days, I am traveling abroad at least twice. So it works for me to buy an annual policy. So be aware that that's out there, but most of the time you're probably buying a policy that applies just for the one particular trip. So how do you go about actually getting insurance? There's a number of places that you can find an insurance policy. If you are booking your airline tickets, you will often see, once you get to the part where you're paying, they will offer you insurance there. Perfectly valid thing to do. You just have to make sure that it's covering what you want covered. If it's just covering what happens if something happens with the flight and you're worried about what happens if I get hurt when I'm there, that may not work. So you need to, really for every policy you might consider, really closely look at what it's offering. The credit card you use to purchase things might offer you some protection. So check with your credit card to see what is protected if you use that card to buy your airfare, to pay for your cruise, to pay for your hotels, whatever it might be. Maybe that's enough just with your credit card. If you have an insurance agent that you already use for other insurance you have, like your homeowners or your car insurance, talk to them, tell them what you are looking for, and they can help you find a policy that will work for you. And then you don't have to do any work. Someone else will do that for you. But the way I get my insurance is I just look for it myself on Google, essentially. So when I was first looking for that insurance when I went to Lisbon, I knew that I wanted COVID coverage. So the company that I picked really was the one that to me was the clearest on their website what was covered and what was not regarding COVID. Because at that time, some policies covered COVID, some of them didn't. So I wanted to make sure I had one that covered what I needed. And I have used that company ever since. It doesn't matter what that company is. I do have it linked below because it is the website I went to to get the screenshots of what I have put up on the video here. But that's not the only one. I'm not saying it's the best one. There are lots of travel insurance companies out there. And again, it's a matter of finding one that meets your needs. But if you do a general Google search for travel insurance, you will of course find all of their websites. But where I started was a Consumer Reports kind of website that went through a lot of different insurance companies and rated them and said the pros and cons of each. And I picked one that worked for me. So that would be a really good suggestion if you're willing to do some of the legwork and figure out on your own what is going to best meet the needs that you have. So the last thing I want to mention is the idea of making a claim. Now, I have been really lucky. I have never had to make a claim, but I have heard that it can be rather difficult, and really that's true for any insurance policy, right? Their goal is to not pay you. So my biggest piece of advice is if you find yourself in a situation where you're going to need to make a claim, make sure that you are keeping really good records. Keep copies of every single thing that you might be given. Take notes contemporaneously as to what is happening so you can submit all of that to the insurance provider and hopefully get paid for what you have lost. And you might have to spend some time arguing with them and proving your case. And again, that's just how insurance works. That's where having an insurance agent do it for you might be beneficial because then they, again, do that work for you. But the biggest thing is just to really be prepared and have everything documented so that you're more likely to have them accept your claim. So that is my quick overview on what to look for when you are purchasing travel insurance. Again, I would not personally travel internationally, at least, without insurance these days. There's just so much that can happen, and I want to be protected so I don't have the out-of-pocket costs that might go along with that. So hopefully you found this interesting. Thank you for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.